Okay, let's continue our discussion on business process improvement. We're talking about business processes in organizations and trying to implement our business processes in such a way that they are able to respond to change. So a workflow and mapping of processes is an important step here. And some organizations have these on file, have records of these, but most do not. Most they're just in somewhere in the collective knowledge base of the organization. But you have workflow. This is a way to look at cross-functional processes when how is work done for a specific process? Who touches it? Who signs papers? Who collects papers? What data is entered? So it's both. It's not just a, um, a, a technology-based system, but it's an entire a set of steps that are part of that process. So the definition of workflow, a series of connected tasks and activities done by people and computers to form a business process. So we use software, we try to automate some of the processes where we can. Do we have to get a paper-based approval that you sign on in one facility and then has to be sent to another facility to be signed? Or are there some things we can automate through the system? There are workflow software that helps facilitate these. Workflow systems are built into many ERP systems that are a vital part of an ERP system, which we'll discuss ERP in business software in a bit. Microsoft SharePoint has workflow built into it. You can use collaboration, document sharing. So for approval of documents or policies, you can set it up so it's electronic approval. So it doesn't require a signature, but it does require manager rights or specific rights tied to a certain user before it's moved to on the next set of that process. So we'll see a lot of times workflow and business processes are often combined in terms of the way they're discussed and used interchangeably. So we're looking at how we can also monitor business process, how we can track it, and one of the ways we could do that is through a workflow diagram, a picture or a map of the sequence of each step. And there are different ways we can do that. It can be a very informal thing. It can be something like the example we have here of a fulfillment process that has the general areas that we're focusing on. We've got our sales organization, our sales part of the organization, a sales unit, our warehouse, our accounting unit. So we have some of the things that are involved in the fulfillment process for this organization, where we receive an inquiry about the product from a customer or potential customer. And we then create and send a quotation for the product to that customer. We receive, we hope, an order from the customer in the form of a purchase order, and then we have in the sales department have to enter a purchase order number. We create a sales order within our organization. We then prepare shipment. We're assuming that we have the product in inventory at this time, so we prepare shipment. We pick and pack that, unless we have that in this organization. We don't have manual or automated or robotic picking and packing, and this is still common. We will then send the shipment, and then we create and send the invoice. Once we then we receive payment. So there are other steps involved. So you can see this is the workflow for this organization, and on the lower part you see some of the documents in this system. There's actually a system that's tied to this process that helps them track what's happening. Another example, another way that we track workflow or business processes is through a more formalized type of diagram. And this example is BPMN. This is a business process um, model notation. It's a business process model notation. So BPMN. So that you can see we have 3 columns, and these are called swimming lanes. So you think of it as a Olympic style swimming pool where you have different lanes. So each lane represents a different role, or it could be a different business unit. It really depends on how you want to define it. But you can see here we've got a purchasing or procurement process where we start from the warehouse, requisition is created, and then moves over into purchasing where a purchase order is created. They send the purchase order, etc. So you can see this is one example, and then it moves into the invoice and receipt of payment. So this is a purchasing process within the organization. Just one example. And just looking at this example, I wonder what, if there are some things that are left out here. So there are approvals that we don't see here from specific people that needs to be acknowledged. So it's really up to you at what level of detail is needed, but if we want to utilize these types of documentation for our business processes or workflows, I would say it's, the more information, the better, while still keeping the diagram manageable. So if there are 200 steps and 200 different boxes, then we may need to think about the way we're breaking it down. As I've said in earlier discussions regarding process mapping and business processes, you can look at it from a very high level perspective, an overall procurement process, or you can look at a very small piece of the process. So even if we break down one of these specific tasks, such as creating the purchase order, there are likely multiple steps regarding creation of the purchase order or receipt of shipment. So those are some examples. These are not the only examples, but I encourage you to take a look at this because this can be useful for you in the future. And so you see you've got a starting and an end point. That doesn't mean that's the end of the receipt of payment. That's the end of this process as we've defined it.